This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio. Angela and her family just returned from a 7-night cruise on Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas. It was over in the Mediterranean from Rome to Athens, and it was her very first cruise ever. A heck of a first cruise to do. How you doing, Angela?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have
We're
you.
Such big fans of yours.
Thank you so much. It's very sweet. Well, so let's take a step back here and get some pre-cruise thoughts before we head over there to Europe. So what made you want to do this 7-nighter in the Med as your very first cruise? Because normally, like, you work up to that kind of status.
Yeah, so we were celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary, and my husband and I always wanted to get on a cruise, so we started looking around, and once I realized that you could cruise to Italy, I just had my heart set on that. So we decided that we were going to do a Mediterranean itinerary, and we found this Voyager sailing that did not only started in Rome, but made a couple of stops in Italy and then also Greece and Turkey.
So you packed up the family, you hopped on a plane and went over to Rome. Any pre-cruise time before you boarded?
Yeah, we did. We definitely wanted to spend a little bit of time exploring some of Rome before we got on the ship. So we flew out on, it was a Thursday, and did a red eye from, we flew Omaha to Atlanta, Atlanta to Rome. And did a red eye between Atlanta and Rome, and got there and spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Rome before getting on Voyager on Monday.
You said your husband is a military brat. Was this your very first time going to Europe?
Yes, it was my very first time, and we brought all 4 of our kiddos, and my parents decided about maybe a third of the way through all of the planning that we were doing that it sounded like a lot of fun, and they decided that they wanted to come too. So all 8 of us trekked all the way over to Europe, and it was just such a mind-blowing adventure. My kids had never seen anything like that before.
Of course, you have tons of options to research these days. Being first-timers, though, over in Rome, did you make it through okay? Did you have any worries like pickpockets or anything?
Yeah, we definitely read a lot of that on, the blogs and the Facebook pages as well. So, we were prepared. We tried the tricks with the carabiners on the zippers on our backpacks and everything. But honestly, when we got there, I never really felt unsafe. You have to be aware of your surroundings, certainly, but it just never felt like we were really in danger. And we were able to get around the city pretty easy. We Ubered a couple of different places. We did cabs a couple of different places, and we navigated the metro a couple of times, which was another thing that just blew my kids' minds. They had never seen anything like that.
And how did you get down to the cruise port from Rome?
We booked a private transfer through Voyager. It was super helpful. They just came and picked us up at our hotel and got us directly to the cruise port. And we were really happy that we did that. Not only was the driver, super helpful, but he knew exactly where to go. And it was kind of crazy at the cruise port. It felt really, really big. And if we were trying to navigate that on our own, I felt like it would have been way more stressful than it needed to be.
Well, so far you're doing good for first-time cruisers. So you make your way to the port itself and you go to embark this ship. How was embarkation for you? And how long did it take you to get from the curb to the ship?
Yeah, so embarkation was pretty smooth. Maybe a rookie mistake, but we got there like way earlier than we probably should have. They were still trying to get everybody from the previous cruise off of the ship and out onto like the scheduled transfers. So we found somebody that worked for Royal and kind of asked, hey, where can we wait? So they showed us, where to stand, and we were there with all of our luggage, and they were super sweet about it, and said, don't worry, we'll get you on the boat first since you're here so early. So we waited on the curb of the terminal for maybe 20 minutes. And then the baggage guys came and whisked our luggage away and, swept us right through the door. And because we were, some of the first ones through the door from start to finish, check-in, security, all of that, I mean, maybe 10 minutes. And then we sat down waiting for the first boarding group to be called for maybe another 10 minutes. I mean, it was barely enough time for me to try to get my kids connected to the terminal Wi-Fi. I mean, it was super quick.
Okay, so you make your way on board Voyager of the Seas. And as we mentioned, this was your very first cruise. So what were your first impressions as you stepped on board?
I just couldn't believe after more than a year and a half of planning that we were finally here. It was just so exciting. My kids were just going bananas, seeing all of the sights. We got in there and immediately we're trying to pick out our muster station so that we could go and check in. And then we got my parents checked into theirs. And then we just started wandering around and taking in all of the sights, lots of pictures on the Royal Promenade, and eventually made our way up to the Windjammer to wait for it to open to grab some lunch.
It was your husband, yourself, and 4 kids. So I'm going to say you had more than one stateroom plus the parents. What kind of staterooms did you have, and how were they throughout your voyage?
Yeah, so we ended up with 3 rooms, and my family, so me and my husband and my kids' families, we did 2 interior rooms right next to each other. We couldn't get adjoining rooms, but they were right next to each other. And, we had to do the whole me and my girls in one room and my husband and the boys in the other room because you need one adult for each room. But then once we got on, obviously we scooted the kids over to one room and they put the bunk beds up for them to sleep on. And, honestly, Doug, I was surprised at how much space it felt like there was. So we're camper people, so we're kind of used to close quarters and tight spaces. So I was really preparing myself for the worst with interior rooms, and it really turned out to be, enough space. And, what they say is true. You really don't spend a whole lot of time in your room anyway. So we found it very comfortable. Beds were comfortable. It was nice and cold, during the night. And, the extra bonus for the interior rooms was it did get really dark. It kind of helped us really shut down for the night and sleep. And then my parents had an ocean view, and it was right towards the front of the ship. So their room was actually a little bit of an odd shape because of where it was located on the ship. But their room, certainly nice. It had a little bit of extra space, and they really enjoyed it as well.
Being a camper person, did you find that the bathrooms were decent size, or were they a little too small still?
I mean, it was definitely small, but it was much bigger than what we had in our camper.
Sure.
So, we weren't too put off by that. And, it is kind of what it is, but we found it comfortable and, really able to, do what you needed in the bathroom and get out.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any complaints from my 13-year-old teenage daughter. So, if she can live with the bathroom, then, we're doing good.
Plus, it's a Mediterranean cruise, too, so they're very port intensive. And like you said, you're not in the room that much out anyway because you're out exploring during the day. Then you're just beat pretty much want to sleep after dinner during the evening time. So speaking of dinner, let's talk about the food on Voyager of the Seas. We'll start at the Lido deck up there at the Windjammer Marketplace, Royal Caribbean calls it. So how was your experience eating up there throughout the week? And what did you think of the quality of the food?
Yeah, we really enjoyed the Windjammer. I know food can be super subjective, but we always found something that we could enjoy. And with 4 kids, that can often be a challenge. I've got some kids that will only eat chicken tenders and French fries, and I've got other kids that want lobster and steak. So there really was something for everybody on the very first day. I think it kind of blew my daughter's mind that they had paella on the international bar, which I think she had like 4 plates of that.
Oh, well.
And then they have, just your regular chicken tenders, burgers, and hot dogs as well. And my 12-year-old son is just a hamburger fanatic. I literally, there was one day that he ate 8 hamburgers.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know where he was putting it all, but even my husband and I, my parents, we found the food at the Windjammer to be great. There was always Royal Caribbean staff circulating, asking you if you wanted a beverage or trying to take away your empty plates. It was very clean. Everybody behind the service bars were very keen to make sure that you were getting, whatever you wanted. So it was great.
As far as the main dining room, what time dining did you have and how was it in there?
We did the early seating. So I think we were allowed to sit down anytime between 5:30 and 6. Parents love to eat early, so we were always there right at 5:30. And our staff, our waitress, she was so sweet. Her name was Deepa. We just absolutely adored hearing, stories about, past cruises that she waited on and what things are like, back in her home country. And she just wanted to learn everything she could about us. So it was fantastic. The food was phenomenal. I don't think we ever had a bad meal in the main dining room. Great food. They let you order a couple of different appetizers or even entrees if you want. There were several times that my dad or my husband decided to do the upcharge for lobster or a different steak, but it was just so amazing. And my kids were ordering burgers and grilled cheese and spaghetti, 2 at a time sometimes. They were just so tickled that they could have as much as they wanted.
With this ship being an older ship, it only has, I think, 3 specialty restaurants, Azumi, Chops, and Giovanni's Table, I believe. Did you do any of those?
Yeah, so we did really want to do the chef's table, but it was all sold out by the time I kind of discovered that was a possibility. So definitely going to have to try to hit that next time. But my husband and my daughter ended up going to Azumi. So my youngest is usually pretty stuck to me. So I think my husband wanted to give me a little bit of a break and take her out for a sushi date. So they went up to Azumi one of the nights, and he said the food was so phenomenal. And my youngest can put some sushi down. So he was a little bit worried about the portions, like they weren't going to necessarily have enough to feel full at the end. But he said they left so stuffed, they almost had to roll out of there. And the quality of the fish was phenomenal. And he said that the service in the main dining room, again, like I said, was really great, but it was definitely a step above in Azumi. So they really had a good time.
I'm always curious when I talk to people from the Midwest about these cruises and the steakhouses because you have like the best steak out there. So I'm going to ask you, did you do the steakhouse on this sailing?
No, we didn't. We kind of purposely passed on that one just because we can get a really great steak anytime here in Nebraska. But we did have steak in the main dining room a couple of times. And for somebody who can get a really, really good steak anytime, we were a little skeptical that it was going to be good, but, we really enjoyed it. And the night that they had prime rib, it was really good. I was very impressed.
What did you think of the entertainment throughout the week?
Oh, the entertainment. Oh my gosh. We had so much fun. There was always something going on, certainly. And we were using the app to try to plan out the day. And, like you said before, it's pretty port intensive. And we wanted to, this being our first cruise, make sure that we were hitting some of those entertainment highlights. So we did the ice skating show one night, which was really cool. I just don't know how they get around those, little ice rinks and some of the, jumps and twirls and stuff that they're able to do. It's just so amazing. We did bingo, which was a lot of fun. And my parents really enjoyed the shows. They went every single night to something. So there was a magician one night, and then a couple of like musicals. There was a singing group one night, and then another night they were doing it was kind of a medley of a bunch of famous Broadway songs, which was really cool as well. So a lot of stuff going on. My husband and I definitely enjoyed a lot of the musicians that were playing at a couple of the different venues around the ships. We were kind of following this one guitar player around because he was just so excellent. And it felt serendipitous almost. The very first song we heard him play was the first song that we danced to at our wedding. So
Wow.
It's just pretty perfect.
How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
Yeah, so we only had the one sea day, and you definitely felt it when you were on the pool deck. But other than that, we didn't really notice too many crowds amongst the ship throughout the day, which was something that I was kind of worried about. But, we got to the pool a little early on that day and tried to, do some swimming and enjoy before the crowds got too terrible. And then we definitely took advantage of some more of the inside activities once it started to get pretty crowded.
Voyager has that water park on the back, and was it the Flow Rider as well? What did your kids think about the space back there?
Oh, they loved it. Nobody was brave enough to try the Flow Rider, but we took full advantage of the water slides. The kids just had a blast kind of racing each other down, and they even got me to go down quite a bit. So it was a lot of fun.
Did they spend any time in the kids club?
They didn't, I offered it to them a couple of times, and, I didn't have any takers, but they're pretty good at either running around with each other or, making friends. And a couple of my older kiddos were able to meet some other teenagers, and, they just took off and had a lot of fun and ran around together.
Being a first-time cruiser, you might find this next question kind of odd, but what did you think of the smoke situation in and around the casino?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've heard you ask it before, so I was trying to purposely pay attention. I felt like the casino did a pretty good job of, dealing with the smell. You could definitely tell that people were smoking in there, but, as you walked, either through or by, you didn't notice it being too noticeable. Like it wasn't super strong. But being over in Europe and obviously, a pretty diverse, amount of cruisers from a lot of different places, where we did notice a lot of smoke smell was on the pool deck. It just felt like there was a lot of real estate dedicated to smoking areas. So, my kids were just kind of shocked because obviously that's not really something that you see over here in the States. They were really surprised.
All right, so you leave Rome, you're out to sea, you head to your first port of call, which was what, and what was your highlight?
Yeah, so our very first one was Naples, and for Naples, we decided that we wanted to do a tour of Pompeii. So we kind of did some research, and, my dad was a diehard Rick Steves fan. So we were kind of reading some of his book and found a tour company that he had recommended. So we booked with them, and actually they offered to have a driver come pick us up at the cruise port, which made it so simple. All we had to do is walk off the ship and go down to the parking lot and find our guy. So we went out to Pompeii, and it was great. It was just a private tour, so it was just our family. And we spent about 3 hours out there doing the tour. It was so incredible to see and to learn that, barely 20% of Pompeii has actually even been excavated, and how much more work they have to do. It was pretty hot. It was definitely one of those instances where, we were happy to have hats and lots of sunscreen. But because the ruins are a little bit more spread out, it didn't feel crazy claustrophobic or crowded like the Colosseum did at Rome.
Any pizza spots in Naples?
Yeah, so the owner operator of the tour that we took owned a little, I don't know, it's more than like a roadside stand, but not quite a full blown enclosed restaurant. And they just had, such wonderful options on the menu. So it was so easy. They just made, I can't recommend that tour operator enough. They just made everything so simple for us.
Do you remember the name of the company?
tourpompeii.com.
What a great company to have. You're a tour operator and you also are a food provider for people. So after you leave Naples, what was your next port of call?
So the next stop after Naples was Messina in Sicily. And we didn't book any excursions there. I tried really hard not to overschedule us because I had read that was definitely something that, people made a mistake for when they're going over on med cruises. So we left the day open. We got off the ship and just kind of wandered around the little town there for the morning. We did some shopping, lots of really good food options there, and just kind of bebopped around. I will say that morning was a little challenging, getting off of the ship and then trying to make your way through all of the guys trying to sell tours and taxis. They were pretty obnoxious and aggressive. So, we did everything we could to hustle all the way across the street. And some of them even, followed us. I mean, they were really trying to get people on their tour buses. So, that wasn't super awesome. But once we made our way through the crowd, it was just such a cute little town. And we did some damage shopping for sure.
The aggressive vendors can get overwhelming sometimes. You leave Messina, you make your way towards Greece. What was your first port and what did you do?
The next stop would have been Santorini. So that was such an adventure, probably one of the top 3 highlights of the entire trip. We got off the boat, just a couple of us did, a few decided to stay on. And, it's a tender port, so we had to, ride the tender over. And when we got there, we kind of realized that the line for the gondola to take you up to the top of Santorini, up to Fira, the town, was probably at least an hour long. The booth selling tickets to get on a boat to get up to Ia looked like chaos. And so that really left us with the donkey path. Mm-hmm. So we looked at the line and we were just like, okay, it's pretty short. When are we ever going to be in Santorini again? Let's get on a donkey. So, we paid the 10 euros per person, and these guys that were operating these donkeys, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. They were out there in the hot sun with no shoes on these cobblestone roads, just getting people onto the donkeys and sending them on their way. And so we got on, we started up the switchbacks, and it was almost like a game of bumper cars and chicken combined, because, there were some donkeys coming down the path after, dropping their passengers off, and, our donkeys were making their way up. It was just so wild, and just something that I will never, ever forget. It was pretty crazy. And once we got up to the very, very top, we found a great little restaurant and had, some of the best food that I've ever had in my entire life, and just enjoyed the sights. And we did some shopping, and thankfully it was still pretty early that we got on the gondola without a wait and made our way back to the ship. And once I told the story, several more of my family decided they wanted to get off and kind of see what it was all about as well. So we got back off the ship again a second time, and this time we just rode the gondola up because there was no line, and did some more shopping, enjoyed some of the views. And we didn't want to wait in line to come down because at that point, it really did look like all of the things that you see online with tons and tons of people trying to get down all at the same time. So we decided to just walk down the donkey path instead of try to ride down, which was an adventure in and of itself. My daughter, for whatever crazy reason, thought flip-flops were a good idea. So that was a great learning opportunity for us. Make sure everybody's wearing tennis shoes before you get off the boat.
You answered my next question, which was if you didn't want to, take the donkey back down, could you do a hike? And it sounds like you could because your daughter's feet were tore up.
Yeah, you sure can. It would probably take you a good 25 to 30 or so minutes. I think it's like 600 steps to get up, but each step is about, maybe 5.5 feet wide. So they're really big, wide steps. So if you were feeling really adventurous, you could do that for sure.
So you leave Santorini. What was up next on the itinerary?
So after Santorini was Ephesus in Turkey. Actually, it's Kusadasi, but we did a Royal Caribbean excursion there and did the tour of ancient Ephesus. That one was super easy as well. You just go to, where you need to meet for the excursion. It was in the theater. They definitely had the system down, put your sticker on, get you onto the right bus. And our tour operator was telling us all about Turkey when we were making our way out there. It was really interesting to learn about. I don't know why, but I guess I never connected that technically Turkey, the part of Turkey that we were on, is Asia. So kind of crazy to think, I guess we got another continent and didn't even really, realize that we would. But told us a lot about the history, a lot about the geography. And then as we made our way through the actual ancient Ephesus archaeological site, he just did such a great job of, telling us about the history and why it was such an important site and, a lot of just biblical ties and, kind of explaining some of the whys behind some of the stories that, we obviously knew from the Bible. So it was really neat, very cool, lots of cool pictures by the library, which are those arches that, you usually see. And we just really had a great time there. Again, very, very hot. I would strongly suggest, hats or a portable fan, lots of water, lots of sunscreen. It was close to 100 and we were out there in the early morning. So, just be aware of that.
Yeah, it was cool walking in the footsteps of like where Paul walked back in the day there. And I have to ask because it seems like everyone I interview who's been to Ephesus, I got to ask, did you get the rug pitch on the way back?
I was ready for the rug pitch. They were trying to hustle us through, and we got off the bus and, asked our driver, hey, if we want to just go back to the ship, can we? And, they pointed us in the right direction. So we decided to pass on the rug pitch. It was really, really warm. Everybody was kind of ready to be back in the air-conditioned comfort of our ship.
Gosh, they told us we couldn't go back. They would take us back to the ship, and like legit, the rug factory was right in front of the ship. We had no clue because we were all turned around. But I was like, we could have just walked there, but we had to sit through that presentation. So after Ephesus, what was your next port?
Then our last one was Mykonos. By then, everybody, was pretty tired for sure. Just my dad and I ended up getting off that day, and we did another Royal Caribbean tour, which was just like a walking tour of the town. And our tour guide was so amazing. I think she must work part-time as a comedian because, she just had us cracking up the entire time. She's actually from London, but married her husband, who was from Mykonos. And she was telling us stories about, raising her kids on the island and, a lot of the differences and then a lot of the history, which was just fascinating. And the city was just so beautiful. Lots of cute little shops that you could do shopping at, a lot of, really awesome local restaurants, and very easy to walk. And that was probably the only day that it wasn't or didn't feel like 9 billion degrees outside. I don't know if that's just because where Mykonos is situated. So it was very breezy, but it was, in the low 80s, and it just felt like such a relief. And after our tour, we had lunch on the island, and again, probably one of the best meals that I've ever had in my life. The seafood was just so amazingly fresh, and I have never had baklava like that before in my life. And then we had to do, obviously, the Greek coffee with it. Shout out to my dad on that one. He had the foresight to order us the baklava and the coffee. And it was just, I'm still dreaming about it.
Yeah, a lot of goodness over there on those Greek Isles. So you ended your cruise in Athens, and we'll talk about your post-cruise time in just a couple of moments here. But let's talk about debark. How was the process, and how efficient was it, in your opinion?
Yeah, it was okay. I would say, I definitely was prepared for some of the chaos just based on the research that I did. We went up to the Windjammer, tried to grab some breakfast. And the worst part about all of it was just trying to get the elevators downstairs because we did self-assist. And when we finally got the elevator and got downstairs, it was pretty smooth sailing. We had booked a private transfer, again, through Voyager. And, we were able to just walk off of the ship over to our meeting place. We were about 15 minutes early from when we told the driver that we would be there. So we waited the 15 minutes. He showed up right on time, and off we went to our hotel.
Awesome. So you did some post time after your cruise in Athens. I have to ask, how was the weather there? Because there were some tourists who passed away because of this extreme heat wave they've been experiencing in Athens.
Yeah, it was very, very hot. We were literally and figuratively sweating it. We were worried about our Acropolis tour being canceled because we got the notification from Royal Caribbean saying, in Greece, if the temperature gets over, I think it was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, they shut down the archaeological sites. Like, you can't go. So we were really worried about it. We got to our hotel. We got there pretty early. Only one of our 4 rooms were ready. So we kind of got the kids plugged back into Wi-Fi and kind of hanging out in the lobby for as long as we could stand it, because the lobby was so warm too. You had to definitely be careful with how warm it was. And our Acropolis tour started at 5:30 in the evening when it was finally starting to cool off a little bit. So we were thankful, but even that late in the day, it was still pretty hot.
Voyager is about 25 years old at this point. I have a question. You were speaking of Wi-Fi. Did you purchase the Wi-Fi package on the ship?
Yeah, we did. And I would say that it works really great in the main areas, and definitely the higher on the ship you went, the better your signal got. I don't know if it was because we had interior rooms or what, but you just really couldn't get connected and stay connected in the rooms, which, was kind of frustrating. But, the kids just kind of learned where the good spots were. So if they wanted to download something or, use their phones in any way, they knew to go to the library or, to the Windjammer or wherever else. I would buy it again just because, with 4 kids, they definitely need to be connected, and they had to, kind of keep their planes in airplane mode since we were overseas. But, it was kind of disappointing that, it didn't work in our room.
Since you were a very first-time cruiser and you did your first cruise in the Med, do you have any first-time tips for someone sailing the Med?
Yeah, I would say definitely don't overschedule yourself. Leave some of that time to just get out there and explore, find the good restaurants, kind of stumble on some of the cute shops and, just kind of see where the days take you. But what I really had to come to grips with after the first couple of days, get it right in my mind that we're not going to be able to see everything, certainly. It's just a first taste of all of these wonderful cities and sights, and, just kind of thought, okay, we'll be back again. And that kind of took some of the pressure off, which helped. You're just there and you're seeing all of these beautiful things. And sometimes it's just really easy to get caught up in that pressure to feel like I got to do it all.
So do you think you'll cruise again?
100%. So that was one of the other things that we did on the ship. Convinced my husband after a couple of beers down at the Pig and Whistle one night to go up and talk to the next cruise people. And we put our $200 deposit down, and we're actually eyeing a sailing out of Miami on Allure of the Seas at the end of January. So we'll be back on for sure.
What was the biggest highlight of this trip for the family?
Man, there were so many, but, I really feel like just being able to expose my children to something that's so wildly different than Nebraska, and giving them, the gift of seeing a part of the world that, none of us had ever gotten to explore, and we got to do it all together. So it was pretty special.
And with your parents able to come along too, what a very cool experience.
It was fantastic. We had a wonderful time.
Your final thoughts of Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas?
She's an older ship, but she's very well taken care of. We found her to be really clean and lots of stuff to do. There was no shortage of fun. I would definitely sail again on Voyager if given the opportunity.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for sharing part of your vacation with us. We sure appreciate it.
Of course. We just love your show. Thank you so much for all you do. We really appreciate you.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,